Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. My name's Brian. Today I'm working on this Jeep project here in the garage, but I also need to change the oil in my Touareg TDI. I really don't feel like crawling under it, so we're going to try a fluid extractor and see how that works out. I purchased this fluid extractor from Harbor Freight. It's this one right here, unfortunately not a sponsor, so I paid full price for it. But this car does not have a dipstick. It has a tube that you're supposed to jam this extractor down in to remove the oil. So let's give it a shot. You might be fooled into thinking this was a dipstick, but it's just a plug. Obviously hasn't been out in a while. There it is. There is an electronic dipstick on the dash. This fluid extractor comes with multiple size little tubes. We're going to try this one. I'm not sure how deep is deep enough. Really won't go any deeper with the length of this one. I opted for the pneumatic version just because I could. So it should pull a vacuum in here and pull the fluid out. So with air pressure on here, there's a venturi down here somewhere that should pull a vacuum in this cylinder that should extract the oil from the engine. So I did drive it earlier, so it's fairly warm. So here goes, let's see what happens. I think this car holds 8.5 liters, and according to the dashboard gauge, it's full, so I would expect roughly that amount. Looks like this might take a while. We're about 90 pounds here on the compressor, so it'll likely come on here in a minute. So I'm not sure where the all-in level is. All right, it feels like it's pulling air at that point. So right there is about where it stops. I don't know if you can see that, but that's where it kind of aerated. When I pulled it up out. I don't know if you can see that, but we apparently pulled that much oil out. Did I mention it was really windy today? So while we're letting that suck, while this is doing its job, we can go ahead and go after the filter. So those of you following along at home, oil filters here on top. And that is a 30 millimeter hex. And from my experience, once you release the oil filter, a bunch of oil is going to drop into the pan. So you want to go ahead and just crack this loose during the suction or draining process. Should probably get some gloves. Looks like we're about halfway there. So unfortunately, due to all this wind, my camera blew over and broke the microphone, my external mic. So it looked as though it was a recording, although it wasn't. So we're going to try to continue this with a little voiceover. So I'm go ahead and get the filter ready. I get these from Amazon. It's a genuine man filter. There's an O-ring that comes with it for the lid. There's a groove on that lid. You just need to get it in the right groove. Get a little bit of oil coated on it so it doesn't bind when you put it in. Pretty standard stuff here. And then the filter itself has a little sort of boss on the front or on the filter that needs to face the front of the vehicle, and it'll turn and drop down into a little recess in the bottom of the filter housing. Kind of just like this. So if you don't get it in right, you can break that off. It's sort of towards the front. And then I just slide the cap on and push it down in there. And then I don't know if you can see it, but right about here, there's a little spurt, and that is coolant gushing everywhere right by my hand. So there's a little coolant hose, plastic coolant hose right there that shattered. So to stop the flow, I unscrew the lid for the expansion tank to take the pressure off of it, which stopped it. So now we have this dilemma. We might as well finish the oil change. You just tighten down the cap on the filter housing, and then it gets torqued to, I believe it is 30 Newton meters, something like that, 25 plus 5. So anyway, I'm investigating what's happened here, and there's the end of the hose just split right in half, right in the middle. Meanwhile, the oil sucking operation, it looks like it's finally got it all out because the tube shows up clear right here, or mostly clear, and there's nothing on the end of the stick, so, or the end of the siphon tube. It looks like it's about 8 liters, and you could possibly take this lid off and look in, but it doesn't come off, or it comes off enough, but you can't see in it. So go ahead and cut off the remnants of this hose that's split. I'm using a die grinder with a bit. One end of the hose is a 90-degree rubber elbow with a band clamp crimped onto it, and the only way to really get in there is with this die grinder and just ground the ear off, and it opened it up and I could pull it off there. I use a pick with a 90-degree end on it to get around the hose portion of this 90-degree rubber elbow and the metal pipe that comes up from somewhere under the manifold to break that bond. I slide that around there because now I'm a little gun shy. So that came off. I also go ahead and put the plug back in for the oil suction tube so I don't lose that thing or drop anything down there. I had a piece of 5/16 fuel line, which is essentially 8 millimeters, so it appears to be the proper size, and it fits on the barb metal end on the passenger side, and I'm just figuring out how I can route that hose around and replace that plastic tube. Went to O'Reilly's and picked up some of these fuel injection clamps, the full band clamp, not like a worm and groove regular hose clamp, but I didn't want it to dig in or be too tight, especially on the other end. So this end on the passenger side goes pretty straightforward. It just tightened down come around to this side, figure out the length, the routing I want, and I'll use my hose cutters here to cut off the hose nice and squared. Go ahead and put another clamp on there, and this slides onto a plastic tee. Part of it goes straight across and part of it drops down into the valley of the engine. Go ahead and put the clamp on, tighten it down, and at this point we should be done. We should be able to put coolant back in it and go on our way. But I tightened it down. I'm trying to route the hose, and then it just popped right off that tee. The end of the tee shattered. So now I need to dig this piece of hose out and figure out my next steps. So trying to verify how much oil actually came out. Really can't see through this container, but I take my flashlight and you can kind of backlight it from the back, and it looks like we got right about the 8 liters. So before I forget, let's go ahead and top this off. This is the oil I use right here. Need to get 8 liters in it. These are 5-liter jugs, so I already put one full one. This plastic tee broke. I'm not sure you're going to be able to see this, but it goes down to something down in here and goes this direction. So we need to try to get it taken out of here, but it has a clamp I need to get off. I'm a little gun shy taking the angle grinder in there and cutting that off. So let me get a screwdriver and see if we can twist that clamp out. That'll push out of there. Be careful what's plastic in this situation. So there we go. Tee's in there, clamp is tight. This clamp I didn't really loosen with that tee shoved in there, and it feels like it's sealed. Put that clamp back on, put a new clamp over here, kind of routed it around. Not sure how well the engine cover is going to fit, but we can deal with that later. Now I need to top it off with some of the appropriate coolant. Alright, we're at the minimum line. I'm not really sure how much I lost. I already added the oil. Coolant's topped off. So far. We'll have to let it run for a minute and tell us it's got enough oil in it. Oil level at the minimum. Alright, so there's how to change or not change the oil in your 2012 Touareg TDI, and if you break a coolant hose, that's how to fix it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.